Hello and welcome to court. So the first time I made my Regency inspired wig, there were a lot of issues, which is kind of strange for me because I have made a ton of wigs. I was going to do a simple roller set, boil that plastic hair, get my look, and that did not work at all. And I've learned a lot since then. So today I'm going to be making a Regency wig that I purchased for $20. Like actually work, like look good. The reason why I titled this $50 Regency wig is because you need other things. The wig alone is not a $20 wig. We're making it, so you're gonna need some other products. But before we jump into this video, I want to address something. I had planned on making a ton of historical wigs and showing how it could be done affordably, but quite frankly, I'm moving out of wearing a lot of European hair. In fact, right now, I'm actually locking my hair. Do you want to see a baby lock? It's right here. I get it. It's my first one. You see it? You see it? I love it. Anyway, this comes in conjunction with Dionysus and I sort of moving away from historical and moving more into vintage. Quite frankly, I've received a lot of racist messages on a lot of different platforms, and I don't really have to deal with that. Don't worry, you'll still see some Tudor from us. We're obviously going to be finishing our Black Tudor series, which should be our next video after this one. I can't believe that we've already done 9 of these. We'll also be doing some Tudor for the Ren Fair coming up, and we haven't quite picked an era for the ball we're supposed to go to in October, but that will definitely be historical as well. Doing vintage allows us to talk more about queer history, although obviously queer people didn't just pop up in the 20th century. It also allows me to play around with gender more, which is really important to me. On top of moving into vintage, we're going to be sharing a lot more of our interworkings. If you don't follow us on Instagram, which unless you don't have an Instagram, what are you doing? What are you doing? Look in the description. Do that now. I've been posting about our compost and about our garden, and I definitely want to take that onto YouTube because folks really seem to like that. This is not goodbye to Tudor. I mean, we have all of those outfits already made, although we do have a plan for some of them. Alright, let's jump into this video. First, I collected all of my items. These items will be listed in the description box below. Some of them you may already have, some of them you might need to purchase. I'm actually not using specific scissors here to cut hair. I do have some of those scissors, but I didn't use them because I wanted to show that you don't need to go out and buy a pair of scissors in order to cut wig hair and make it look good. T-pins. You could use straight pins, but I prefer T-pins because having that extra T-shape. A hooked sewing needle for actually sewing hair. You could use a straight needle, but a hooked needle makes it so much easier to really get into that wig cap and sew whatever pieces you need to sew together. A 1/2-inch barrel curling iron and bobby pins to secure the wig to your head. If you don't get the wig that I suggested below, please make sure that your wig can have heat applied to it. A lot of synthetic wigs cannot, and it will melt onto your curling iron, so I wouldn't do it. I like to use a regular detangling brush to go ahead and brush out my wig after it's been secured onto my wig head. The reason why I like to use this sort of brush instead of a wig comb or a more wig-centered brush is because I want to add volume to this hair. It's not human hair. It's going to lay pretty flat until you do something to it. If this is your first time wig making, I would suggest doing the next step on yourself. So placing the wig on your head, using the wig cap if you need it, placing the wig on your head, bobby pinning it to your head, and then section out from the crown of the head right to behind the ears and put those two items in ponytails. I've made wigs before. I know where wigs sit on me, so I didn't really need to do that step on myself. Then we're going to curl the back section. You want to work in pretty small sections for this curling iron, not just because it's thin, but because you're working with synthetic hair. Less is truly more with the heat. You want to start low, see what your wig can take, see how you hold the iron and how long you keep it on, what your preference is before you really ramp it up in heat. I like to use Got To Be glue freeze spray, but really you could use any freeze spray. First, I like to spray the section, then comb or brush it out. Here I'm using a brush. And then I like to curl the section while it's still wet. This allows the freeze spray to actually freeze. It tends to freeze with heat or a lot of cool air being blown on it, in this case heat. This is going to be a pretty slow process. Take your time and do it layer by layer, starting at the most bottom layer, working your way up. If you need a little bit more extra security, you can also spray the hair after it's been curled. Personally, that's what I like to do. After all that hair has been curled, you don't want to separate the curls. Remember, we're going for a historical style. Take a ponytail holder, the color of the hair, and then you're going to want to make a ponytail in about the center of the head. And then I actually use the netting that is like on the wig when you first get it and you take it off. It's super, super thin. But if this is your first time creating a wig, you might want something thicker, which is why I provided the like really thick hair nets that give you something to latch on to. You don't need this step, but I prefer to make sure I sew a wig net over the hair that matches the hair color, obviously, because I'm not creating this wig to be taken down. It's going to be like this forever, and I want it to stay in place if I'm running, if I'm moving, if I'm dancing, whatever activity I choose to do. This is where your T-pins really come in handy, because you're going to want to place that hair around that ponytail to create a faux updo, but also not lose the curls. Now, the wig like hairnet thing, that will help keep that shape and help maintain those curls, but you're going to have to sew that in place so that it hides that ponytail holder and that ponytail. Personally, although this is not historically accurate, personally, I like to direct my ponytail going upwards. And the reason why I like to do this is because I'm not sewing every individual curl into place. I am just sewing maybe like every other curl, and it will give that hanging effect of being perfectly placed in an updo on the back. Like this. You're going to want to do a continuous stitch around the perimeter of that updo. I like to do one side at a time so that the back portion doesn't really have anything holding it into place, and so that that hair can droop more naturally. There are a lot of different stitching effects that you could do here, but honestly, you should do whatever works best for you. It's your wig. After that is secured in place, we're going to move on to cutting. You're okay, you can do this. You've got this. It's not your hair and it was $20. You've got this. Much like with your own hair, less is more. Less is more. Less is what? It's more. You can always cut more hair with like hair that's growing out of your head cutting, they say, but you can't put it back. But like in a wig, you could go out and buy like tracks or wefts, but that's more expensive. So you can't put it back, but you can always go back and take off a little bit more. I like to do this one side at a time. So then I'm matching whatever side I started on. So let's say I started on the left. I'm going to match the right to the left instead of trying to do it at the same time, which takes a lot more skill in my opinion. The first thing that you're going to want to do is section the hair again. You shouldn't have to place it on your head at this point because it's already been sectioned from behind the ears forward. You'll really want to section that right in front of the ears. You could move a little bit more forward depending on your face shape, but we're really just trying to get those framey bang pieces out of the way right now. The goal of this part of the cut is for the piece that is kind of just like right on your ear, like earmuffs, to be shorter than it was. So just starting there, shorter than it was. Then you want that second piece that you have up front to be about a little longer than chin length. This is why you want to get ahead and not do this on yourself. A little bit longer than chin length. And then at the very front, you're going to cut a bang, and she's going to be short. So I like to get it to about the bridge, like bottom bridge of the nose, right above the nostrils on the mannequin head, on the styrofoam head, and cut there. All of this is too long for the era, but remember, we can go back and make it shorter. Also remember, you're curling this, so it's going to lose some length on its own. On my wig, once curled, this side portion falls about shoulder length, which is perfect. And then the front here is about top of the ear, middle of the ear max, and that's only on some like little dangly pieces, which is also perfect. And then this portion right at the very front, I cut it a little bit more right at the eyes and then curled it, and that is also perfect. And it matches on this side. I don't know if you can see it. There we go. Matches on this side. This part of the process I do not like to make perfect. If I was using any of my hair cutting scissors, I would be using my thinning scissors or my shearing scissors, whatever you call it, to give it that imperfect textured effect for a couple reasons. One, our hair is not perfect. It does not grow at the exact same rate. The hair is not going to be perfectly blunt as you wear it. That's just not hair. And two, we want to add as much texture and volume as possible to this plastic hair. But I'm not using those scissors today. So in lieu of that, I did go in and do very, very simple layering. And when I say very simple layering, I mean like maybe like 2 centimeters of layering. And if you want that same effect, you'll just need to take the sections that I've already described, except for the very front. That does not need layering at all. Take those sections that I've already described to you, and then you'll just go up throughout the hair. That's the easiest way to do it. If you're advanced, you know that you can like take it out to the side and like cut like that, but we're not doing all that. This is a beginner's video. When I do my other side of the head, it's kind of like eyebrows. I want them to be sisters, not twins, because once again, our hair does not grow perfectly. And if you want your wig to look believable, that's what you have to go for. If this is your first wig, honestly, cutting is going to take a lot of time, and that's okay. It should take a lot of time. You might have to set this down and come back to it. That is totally fine. If you do not feel like you are ready to do even a small amount of layering, which I totally understand, you can give it a more textured feel by feathering the ends. So basically what you'll want to do is hold. You can either hold with your index finger and your middle finger, or you can like pinch it between your thumb and your index finger, but hold everything in a straight line, take your scissors, and cut straight up. This will add a little bit more texture and dimension and give your curls more body-yaddy. At this point, I like to work from back to front. That is purely preference for me, but that's what I like to do. I like to go in and do that little bang. And the reason why I like to do that instead of truly working back to front is because it's such a small amount of hair that I want it to be out of place while I'm doing that little middle section there and not have to worry about it. That little middle section is pretty easy. You're going to be curling that exactly the way you did the very back, from bottom to top. The only difference with this is you're going to want to curl towards the face. The reason why you're going to want to do that is because it's going to hide that seam at the very front, since this is not a full frontal or 360 lace wig. I like to curl that back portion of the wig and just start doing that layering, just like we did in the very back, that layering of curls. So starting at the very bottom and then working our way up. Earlier, I talked about melting the hair, which is kind of figurative, kind of not. This is synthetic hair, so it is going to be melted a little bit. But once again, this style is not meant to be changed. The hair itself doesn't look melted, but it will react differently if you, say, mess up on a curl or don't quite get the ends and you brush it out. You will notice that it's more textured. It's more textured because that plastic has shrunk up a little bit, which is fine if you have to redo a curl or two, but you wouldn't want to brush that out repeatedly because it would start to lose quality. After I have a section done, I like to go ahead and add T-pins in so it stays flat to the head. This wig doesn't really have a lace to it, so you want to make sure all of the edges are hidden. There is some lace at the very front, which I will show myself cutting later, maybe, I think. It'll be a surprise for the both of us. But for the most part, there is no lace, which is what makes it a cheaper wig, along with being synthetic. But you'll want to go ahead and pin that in place and then spray that down so that it just conforms more naturally to your head and to the wig head when it's on. After everything has been done, I like to spray the entire wig with Got2b glue, and then I like to let it sit for at least 24 hours. After that point, you can separate any curls that you may want to, but really we're going for that like super barrel curled look. It's a historical look. So unless you feel like there are pieces where you can see that outer edge, I wouldn't really suggest taking this apart too much, loosening up those curls. This wig is definitely not exactly the same, or kind of remotely the same, as my last wig, except for the back portion. I did do the back portion and that little bang exactly the same. On my original wig, I took those very front pieces and instead of letting them fall, I just took bobby pins, curled them up, and had them frame the face. So I pinned them into place almost like pin curls to give a more soft, Greek-inspired look, because let's be honest, that's what they were going for in the Regency period. They were like, oh my gosh, have you heard? Greek revival hair is like all in right now. I was totally born in the wrong era. I'm like so totally ancient Greek. But yeah, this is her, Miss America, living her best little life, looking super, super cute. Love it. Like I said, we're going to be moving more into the vintage space, which for us is going to be pretty mid-century, from the 40s to the 60s. And this will not be my last wig styling video. I definitely want to do some 40s and 50s wigs. For the 60s, I'll just wear my own hair. But I definitely want to play around with that. If you end up trying out this tutorial, tag us on Instagram because I definitely want to see it. Until next time. Yeah, like Greek's just really in right now. I'm really into Greek music. You probably don't even know what a comedy or tragedy is. You thought that was Greek music? No, it's plays. Duh.